Welcome to another episode of Todoist Productivity Tips. My name is Jerry Colbert, and in this week's episode, we're going to be finishing up talking about how I utilize Todoist. Part 3. Coming up next. So here we are within Todoist for Mac, and in this week's episode, I'm going to be finishing up talking about how I utilize Todoist in my everyday workflow, and we're just going to be focusing on in this episode, and I'll try to, make sure that it's not as long as the other episodes, but basically I'm going to be talking about at the end of the day what I typically do for my review, my mini daily review that will help me set up the next day for success. So, as you see here, I have Todoist open up for the Mac, and I'll give you a brief summary of what I went over in the last two episodes. So the last two episodes we talked about how I set up my projects and my labels, and also talked about filters a little bit. And then the second episode, I kind of dived a little bit more into the filters and how I set those up and how I chunk out my task in smaller bits so it's not so overwhelming. Now, in this episode, though, we're going to kind of be focusing on my mini review. So I separated my mini review down into little chunkable tasks as well to help me know what I'm going to be doing the next day, as well as maybe move some stuff around and this and that. And so my daily review is, I don't say it's a work of art, so to speak, but it does do what I needed to do as far as getting what I need to accomplish so I can keep myself on task for the next day as well as for the coming weeks. So down here at the bottom here, and I showed you all this a little bit in the last episode, but down here at the bottom, I have my daily mini review. Now, my daily mini review is typically handled when at nighttime, typically in my evening tasks, which is, if you follow my last episode, we talked about my evening routines. Is typically when I do my mini daily review. So I usually accomplish that after I get home from work or what have you, after 5 o'clock at night. So the daily mini review, what I do is I have a filter set up, and I click on that filter here, and my daily mini review is going to look and say, hey, is there anything in my inbox that I need to move out of my inbox and process it into the right categories. Is there anything? Well, for today, I have nothing. So in my second label I have in my daily mini review is no labels. These are all of the tasks that I have in my Todoist that either I haven't set up a label for or what have you. Maybe I moved it out of my inbox another day, and when I moved it, when I moved it to a project, I forgot to label it. Well, my daily mini review, second thing here is anything that's no labels, so I can catch any of those mistakes. Like, for instance, here I have one. I moved it out earlier out of my inbox, but I forgot to label it. Now, if I want to have a very productive use of Todoist, you should always label your tasks unless you don't want them showing up in your filters for some reason or another. And as you see here, I have a lot of things in here actually that I do not have labels on because I don't want them to show up in my filters for one reason or another. Some of those reasons might be, like for instance, my someday maybe. If I was to label those and they just happen to get picked up by some of my label or some of my filters in here, I don't want to see those someday maybe things until I'm ready to tackle those. Once I'm ready to tackle those, I will move them out of the Someday Maybe folder into a current project, and then I will label them at that time. Some things I have in here also are checklists that I will be using when that project presents itself. Like, for instance, ever so often I hard reset my Mac to clear everything out. Just I find that's very useful every 6 months, just to kind of clean everything out and start from scratch and have a clean hard drive with no clutter and this and that. So sometimes I do that, and I have my checklist in there on how I'm going to accomplish it so I don't forget stuff, and I can set it back up to the way I want it set up. So I have that checklist in there, but they don't have any labels, and that's fine. So when I go through this daily thing here, I'm really just looking for my tasks that are stuff that is current, but everything else, yeah, I know, and I can kind of go by the project thing here real quick. I can just kind of scroll through here, and I can say, yeah, okay, there's another checklist, yeah. So these guys here, this international travel checklist, yeah, well, I'm not traveling anywhere right now. I got a reset of iMac and MacBook things here, yeah. These are just checklists. Here's another checklist for my work here for QA, whenever that happens. So these things here, I don't have labels on until I need to have labels for them. And so I know these are okay. I am just really looking for this guy right here, and I need to label him. So what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and label it. iMac. Oops. iMac. Add anywhere. At home. And let's see what else. That's good enough for now. And so now once I do that, it's gone out of my no labels thing, and I can move on to my next thing. Daily mini review. Today or overdue. So these are all my today and overdue tasks. Now typically when I'm doing this about 7 o'clock at night, most of these are already gone. But if there's anything that I forgot to do or I need to do, then I know, or anything that I kind of skipped earlier than the time I do the daily review, I might want to go ahead and knock it out real quick or move it to another day if I don't think I can accomplish it before I go to bed that night. So these are anything that is daily or overdue, today or overdue. And then, of course, I have my daily mini review for tomorrow's tasks. So I'll want to look here and I'll say, hey, look at there. I got a lot of stuff to do tomorrow. Am I going to be able to accomplish that tomorrow? There's a lot of stuff. Maybe I might want to move it to another day. So these are some things that I can do. Now, sometimes when I'm doing this and I say I want to move to another day, I might not know what day to move it to. Maybe if I choose to move, let's say, this one here to say maybe I want to move it to Wednesday. Well, maybe Wednesday's already got a lot of stuff. So sometimes I will skip up here to my advancement task for 3 days, 5 days out, and 7 days out, and I'll kind of look and see what I have. So sometimes I'll click on the next 7 days, and I'll say, okay, well, yes, I could move that to Wednesday. Yeah, I could do that. And because Wednesday and Thursday and Friday don't have very much on it. But also keep in mind, though, that you do have a lot of routines that are going to be on here. But as you see, I have this day with advancement tasks full of stuff on tomorrow's date. I don't have very much on Tuesday, so I might want to move it to Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday to kind of fill those up with advancement tasks. So I can either do it from this area, or I can go back to here and move it over. Now that's typically how I do my daily mini review. Let me move minimalism that I created the other day. I'll move that up there because that's where I want that. Now, sometimes I also do a weekly planning session on Saturday or Sunday, and I'll usually do those with these tasks or these filters here. So you're probably asking, how did I set up these filters? Well, there's different ways you can set up these filters. If you look on the three little dots there and you click on filter here, you see that I have some criteria set up here for this filter here. Now, Todoist has a area on their website where they can kind of tell you and give you some ideas of how you can create filters, and they give you a little examples of different kinds of criteria that can be used for your filters. But a lot of times I just have to play around with it and think, well, what do I want to accomplish with this filter and such. Like, for instance, this one here, I have it for any overdue and today tasks, as well as today's focus label. So let me just explain this again to y'all in case you hadn't seen one of my other episodes. This right here is in parentheses because it's overdue or today. The little line there means or. Overdue or today. And why that's important is that I want to show anything in this filter that is either overdue or today. So maybe there's no overdue items. Well, if I put overdue and today, it's only going to show me, it's going to take those two statements and see if they're true. So maybe I don't have any overdue tasks. It's going to negate that statement and won't even show me my today tasks. So I want to say overdue or today. And then I have the and sign, which I also want to include today. So this will only show me things that are true to this statement. Is it overdue or today and also today's filter or today's label, today's focus label? And so therefore it's only going to show me those. And so I have today's focus in there. Yes, that's true. It is for today. And so therefore it shows up there. For my bills due, I have a simple thing here. I have next 30 days and my label at bills due. Now, if you notice, most of my filters are utilizing the label function to parse it out. Occasionally, I will show or I'll use projects, but for the most part, I am just using labels in my filters. Random tasks today. Now, this is a kind of an interesting little filter here. What I did here was today or overdue. And then I said, and not. And so that little exclamation point before the @ sign means not this today's focus, because I don't want that. And I don't want morning routines. And I don't want my evening routines. I don't want routines, period. And I don't want errands involved in this. So it's only showing all of my miscellaneous tasks that have nothing to do with routines, errands, or anything else of the such. Okay. Now, chores for the day. Basically, it's a simple filter, just chores, label, and today or overdue. And then, of course, it's just telling me, hey, I don't want to see any winding down or evening routines either in there because I already have that here. So maybe I have a chore that also has, the chores here are basically for things that I'm going to do on chore day, which is Saturday, which is like, it's not it's a repeatable thing, but it's not necessarily a morning routine. It's not necessarily an evening routine, even though sometimes morning or evening routines can be somewhat chores, but like making a bed or what have you. But it's not technically a chore in my book. A chore is more like washing dishes, vacuuming, sweeping, maybe spraying your house once a week for bugs or what have you. So these are some of the things that I use chores for, and so that's how I set up that filter. And so these are the ways that you can utilize filters in order to help you with your 100 tasks that you might have for the day. So I hope this little 3-part series on Todoist helped you understand how I utilize Todoist for my workflow as far as keeping myself on task. And if it did, please click on that like button right down below. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please click on that subscribe button and the notification bell if you are looking for any upcoming episodes that I put out. And so without further ado, I want to wish you all an awesome day, and let's become more productive. Thank you.